We are live.
Let me see if I can find you on my computer over here. Oh, not yet.
I know that Prepper Nurse 1 looks like he's been having a problem tonight. He had 7 takes of his live stream.
Wait, wow.
Yeah.
You know what? I've been pretty lucky with that during my. I don't do that many live streams, but during my live streams, I've been pretty lucky at not getting kicked out. So
You know what?
I don't know.
It could be his signaling, I guess. I don't know. Let's see.
Let's see. I'm gonna look to the side here and see who we got over here in the chats. Looks like we have a few people waiting already, huh?
We do. Wow. Okay. That's good. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us today. This is the Angry Prepper, and you guys know who this is. This is Alaska Prepper. So, Alaska Prepper, I have to admit, I thought you were the Alaskan Prepper. I had you in as Alaskan, and I looked on your page, and I was like, oh man, it's Alaska Prepper. So,
I'm not Alaskan, but I am an Alaskan.
well, very good. So, let's get on with it. So, for those of you who, obviously don't know, if you don't know who it is, you should know who this is. This is Alaska Prepper. He's a YouTuber, obviously, and he is very on the level and quite the opposite of me. So, where I'm a little edgy and I curse a lot, he's the opposite, and he's more, I guess, soothing or subtle to listen to, if that makes any sense. So, guys, let's start with the basics that we always start with. How do we look and how do we sound? I'm here, can't get it off here. All right. So looks like the chat's working a bit fast today.
Oh, someone said they can't hear me too well. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine.
Oh, someone on here said they can't hear me very well.
Yeah, everyone. That's the right. That was the only one I saw. I didn't see anybody else say it. So, someone else said sorry that your volume is low.
Oh, I don't know. Unless I scream, and if I scream, I'm gonna blow your ear off.
Well, he's not gonna blow my ear off. These people with their headphones are gonna get blown off. AP is hard to hear. All right, guys. Alaskan Prepper's audio is low. If his audio is low, guys, you're going to have to be quiet. That's the best I can do. I can't do much controlling of the audio on my side, though. Everything on my side is squared, and everything on the Skype is maxed out. So just do yourself a favor and get a set of headphones and put them on. Other than that, guys, let's get started with the show. So, how long have you been prep? Actually, let's go back further. Where are you originally from?
Whoa, that's a long story, man.
Go with it.
Okay, so I was born in Dominican Republic. Okay, and the story behind that is my mom and dad, they immigrated to the United States around 1965 or so. Well, 1970 or so, I was conceived, and for some reason, my mom and dad wanted me to have Dominican citizenship, and they knew that if they had me here in the U.S. that I wouldn't. So they went to Dominican Republic. I was born there, and being the immigrants that they weren't very sure of the laws. Well, they were both permanent residents here in the United States, but they didn't know that if they had me in DR, they couldn't bring me back.
Oh.
They didn't know that. So
Okay.
I ended up being raised by my aunt and my uncle for the first 3 years of my life in the Dominican Republic, while my mom and dad took care of all the immigration paperwork that they had to take care of for me to come here, legally.
Right.
So I ended up in New York. I actually remember the day that I landed in New York. It was August 4th, 1974. And my dad picked me up at Kennedy International Airport. And I grew up in Rockland County, New York, until I was 18.
Oh, very good.
After that, yeah, after that I moved out. I joined the Navy, where I met my wife, and after a whole bunch of moving around, here I am in Alaska.
Very good. So, I have to ask. Sorry, Harry, by the way, thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. That's one. What made you move to Alaska then?
It was the Army. I was in the Army.
Okay.
I retired from the Army a few years back. And during my last deployment to Afghanistan, my branch manager, which is the military person that decides where you are placed within your field in the Army, they emailed me, or he emailed me and said, hey, where do you want to go? You have to PCS or move stations once you get back from deployment. And I said, well, where do you have? And he said, Alaska or Hawaii. And I called my wife, and I was like, hey, we can go to Alaska or Hawaii. Where do you want to go? And I figure I'd let her make that choice because she followed me around my whole career, and she's never really been able to make a choice of where to go.
Okay.
And to my surprise, she chose Alaska. And once we got here, about a year after we got here, we really enjoyed it here. And I asked her, I was like, hey, do you want to retire here? Because I knew that was going to be my last duty station. I said, do you want to retire here? And she said, yeah, we like it here. So we found ourselves a piece of land, we cut down some trees, and we built a house.
Nice. That is awesome, actually. All right, so then, how long have you been prepping for? And at what point in time in your life did you realize that prepping was a necessity?
All right, well, realizing that it was a necessity came first. And I've told this story a few times, but I was on my way home from a mid-tour to Afghanistan on my very first Afghanistan deployment. And that was a really rough deployment. But on my way home, I read a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins.
Okay.
And up to that point, I was completely asleep as to how the world works. Once I read that book woke me up. And it allowed me to maybe, I guess you can call it, go down the rabbit hole. It woke up that part of my mind that made me curious as to how the systems by which we live are controlled and how those things work. And through that journey, I also read the book by G. Edward Griffith, which is called The Creature from Jekyll Island, which pretty much tells everyone how the Federal Reserve works.
Okay.
Yeah, between those two books, I realized that government is not here for us, that we cannot count on government to provide for us, especially during an event that may be a systemic event, meaning countrywide, worldwide event where the average population would need help. The government is not going to be there for you. So I understood that pretty quickly after, jumping into the rabbit hole, or after waking up. I understood that pretty quickly. And that's when I started looking into, preparedness, and I found a couple prepper channels on YouTube. YouTube was starting to become, pretty mainstream by then.
Okay.
And I just started following them, and I started my prepping career, I guess you can call it, by doing the little things, by just making mistakes, learning from them, and just continuing to add on. And as time went on, the more time that went on, the more I realized that I needed to be even more prepped. That it's not enough to have a month. And now this is my opinion. But in my opinion, it's not enough to have a month's worth of food. If you do, that's great. That's outstanding, because what that says is that you're probably ahead of about 90 to 90% of the people in this country if you have a month, 2 months worth of food put away. But in my opinion, it's not enough. So if you watch my channel, you'll see that I'm kind of the kind of prepper that likes to buy a lot of stuff. Why? Because I know that in the future I'm going to need that stuff. And why not buy it now while the dollar has a little bit of purchasing power left, than to wait 2 years from now where I'm going to have to pay twice as much for it. So I like to stock up on things that I know I'm going to need. I'd rather keep my money in my pantry than in the bank or in a savings account.
That's I like that. That's pretty good. like to put your money in your pantry. I like that one. So that you also answered question number 2, which was what inspired you to prepare. You answered that already. So I would take it that you're preparing for, I guess, financial collapse and no government support. Is that safe to say?
Well, I like to say that I'm preparing for anything.
Okay.
Because when you really think about it, everyone in this world has a common denominator as to what they need to continue living. Everyone needs, of course, air, but air we get for free, right? Everyone needs water, everyone needs food, everyone needs shelter, everyone needs medicines, whether it be first aid related, like if you cut yourself, or whether it be if you need RX medicines, prescription medicines. And believe it or not, some people may not believe this, but everyone does need to have a form of defending themselves.
Okay.
We all need these things. And those are the things that I concentrate on at the core of my prepping, is those basic things. And then, of course, as you've been prepping longer and longer, you realize that there are peripherals or side items to your prepping that you should be concentrating on as well. For example, what are you going to cook your food with if the utilities go out? Do you have enough water storage? These are side items that you add to your core preps that will allow you to thrive, I guess. The saying thrive and not just survive. So all of those little side things like having extra gasoline, having extra fuel, having a camp stove that you can use inside. Those are things that you don't necessarily have to have, but it's very nice to have them in order for you to continue having somewhat of a standard of living that's similar to what you had before in case of any situation. So I like to say that I'm prepping for almost anything. However, going back to your point about like the economy and financial collapse, I feel that the biggest threat to our country is not a geopolitical threat, or some crazy guy from a different country. I feel that our biggest threat is our economy and our financial system. Will that be the thing that pops? I don't know. But I feel that is our biggest threat, is our economy and our financial system. And not only a threat to our country, but a threat to our own individual sovereignty. So, I'm not sure if I beat that question to death or not. But
no, man, that was good. No. You did good. That was good. And listen, by the way, you just said you were in the Army. Thank you for your service. Pinball Preparedness said the same thing, and a couple other people said it as well.
Nice.
So thank you for your service. So, when did you start YouTube? How long have you been on YouTube, and why did you start a YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story behind that. I remember the day. Well, I believe it was the 19th of November, 2017. So I'm coming up on my 3-year anniversary here from when I first started actively posting to YouTube.
Okay.
I asked a prepper. And the reason why I started a YouTube channel is because I was walking my dog on a winter day down our road here, and I was bored. And I was like, what am I going to do to take up my days during the winter where there's really not that, I'm not that active in the middle of winter.
Right.
And I was, and by that time, 3 years ago, I was really into prepping. I was deep into prepping. I'm in it 100%. I'm like, I'm going to start a prepping channel, just to let people know how I feel about prepping and show them what I do.
Right.
And I shot like a few minute video while I'm walking my dog down the road over here, and that was the beginning, and here we are, I guess.
Very good, man. Because listen, you are in the ideal position as far as prepping goes. Prepper. I guess you're in a rural area. Is that safe to say?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And people like myself who live in a city, that's what we want to do. That's the end game for us, is to get out there, and then it doesn't become prepping anymore. It becomes more homesteading, because you're trying to be more self-reliant than just living for a month or two on food. You want to live and thrive as long as you can on whatever you have and whatever you can supply yourself. So that's, again, that's pretty good that you're out there and you have that the ability to do that, and being that you know the difference. You know the difference between an urban area and suburban, and probably really know the difference. Whereas a lot of preppers on YouTube, unfortunately, they don't. They don't live in the city. They just read a lot of stuff and go, you know what? Those dudes, they're gonna die because they're in the city. It's actually not that clean cut, but I get it. They don't know, but you know the difference, and a few other YouTubers know the difference. So that's pretty good. So now, because you're an easygoing guy, how do you handle jerks on YouTube? With the negative comments and the stupid comments.
Oh yeah, like trolls.
Right.
It took a long time for me to learn how to handle that. At first, whenever I saw a negative comment for whatever reason, sometimes I lose sleep over it.
Really?
Yeah. At first, sometimes I would lose sleep over it. I'm like, because, and then I learned a little more about YouTube that you can, put specific words into their algorithm that'll block someone from being able to post and stuff like that. I started using that tool to try to keep, the really bad, commenters out of there, because I like to run a family. I like to run a family-friendly show.
Sorry.
That's all right. No, that's all right, man. Oh. I like to run a family-friendly show, and I've said that I like to feel at rest knowing that anyone can go onto my comments and be able to read them and not have to feel like they're being attacked or something like that. Because, when it comes down to it, is that we are all human beings. And only because you or someone else may have a different ideology than myself, it doesn't matter. You still need to eat. You still need to drink. You still need all of these things. And one of the things that I say and that I live by is that everybody needs to prep, because the more people that are prepped, it's literally better for you and me. I mean, if every single person I'm not sure if you live in an apartment building or a suburb, but let's say you live in an apartment building. If every single person in your apartment building was prepared for 3 months, 6 months, a year, it's better for you. Because that's one less person that's going to be trying to knock down your door. So it doesn't matter to me who comes on my channel. It doesn't matter what ideology they have. I don't care. As long as we're respectful with one another, and as long as we we have a conversation instead of a shouting match, that's what matters to me. And the way that I started dealing with the trolls or people that are just out to be keyboard ninjas, I think they're called, is I just ignore them. Yeah. I just ignore them. If I read something that someone left on there that is just completely a 180 from what I'm trying to to put out there, I just ignore it. I'll delete it if it's extremely bad language and stuff like that. I'll delete it. But if it's just somebody criticizing me for something, that doesn't it used to bother me when I first started, but it doesn't anymore. Because we all have to acknowledge, and some people cannot acknowledge this, is that we are all different. But only because we are all different, it doesn't mean that our view doesn't have any value. You can find value in anyone's stance, because I've always said that you can learn from someone, whether it's good or bad. One of my very, I don't want to say favorite, but one of my very best teachers in the military was a sergeant major that was the worst person and the worst sergeant major that I ever served under in my career. And I learned more from that person than I learned from anyone else, because that person taught me how not to be and how not to treat people. And I learned a lot from that person. And had it not been for me having to interact with that person at that capacity, I think that sergeant major actually made me a better leader and a better person, because it showed me, look, this is not how you want to be. So really, I learned a lot from that person. I'm actually grateful that I was able to serve under that sergeant major, because they helped to make me a better leader just by showing me how not to be. Sometimes you have to look at the negative and try to get good out of it. So that's how I feel about that.
I like that. That's how I feel about that. No, listen, that's good. I know that I don't too much anymore. Like trolls when they say stupid comments, I do look at it and I go, yeah, all right, that's cute. You know what? I don't lose sleep over it because I understand the world of YouTube and Instagram, and that a lot of cowards hide behind the computer. And then they can say whatever they want because no one's going to know who it actually is, and no one's going to hold them accountable. So after learning all of that, I was like, okay, all right. So my daughter said hi like 3 times. So all right, Harley, how you doing? And my son's on here somewhere conversing with everyone else. So how you doing, Maverick? And
How you doing, guys?
they're in the next room. So then it's not like they're across the country. Yeah, they're right in the next room. So so again, just dealing with trolls, and people always ask me now, like, who's going to start a YouTube channel? Like, what do you do with the trolls? You just ignore them. If you ignore them, I'm 1,000% sure they die of shame because no one paid attention to them. So let it be. Silent Survivor.
My community members are awesome, though. Every once in a while, I see them just tearing apart people that are there to troll.
That's and that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. So when the YouTubers or the viewers or your supporters can back you up, that's really good. That's on a level. And the thing I like about my viewers is because I can actually debate with them, and then we can come to a common ground and disagree, and they still watch my channel as opposed to unsubscribing because hopefully I have a lot of adults on here. Hopefully, but. Silent Survivor, thank you for the donation. Appreciate it. So guys, let me a forewarning. I do look tired because I had a long night last night. I did a interview from midnight to 4 in the morning on a radio show. So I'm a bit tired. That does not mean I'm not interested. I'm just if you see me smacking myself in the face, don't worry about it. That's me trying to stay awake. But I am having a good time. He is a very interesting interview here because his life story is pretty cool. Being that he's pretty much started in DR, made his way here, served our country, and then went to the Prepper's Paradise, which is Alaska or a country like that, and build a home. So that is pretty cool. I do appreciate that storyline, if you will. And your story lends to people who, I guess, look to come to this country and make a difference for themselves. Not to sit there and change the American way of life, but to use the American way of life to make their life better, right? So that's
I would like to say that's why my parents came here. They came here to live the American way of life. Because they cherished it, not to change it.
Very good.
Why would you want to change something that already works, that's already good? They came here to make it life and to use the system that we have here, or the systems that we have here in the U.S. Now, don't get me wrong. We're not perfect, and no one is. What country in the history of the world has been a perfect country? There's no such thing.
No.
Every country has a history, just like if you see a marriage that looks like a perfect marriage, trust me, it's not. Every country, like every marriage, has a history, right? And there's some good and there's some bad. However, instead of concentrating on only the bad, why don't you use the good to better yourself and better your situation? And then maybe you can prop yourself up to a position where you're able to help others. So yeah, I am very, very proud of being an American. And I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I honestly would not want to live anywhere else. This is where I'm staying, and this is where I'm dying.
That's very good, man. Dylan, thank you for the donation. Yes, Dylan's, I think his name's Stolen, interestingly enough. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. So, I'm curious, because you live in Alaska, how was the COVID handled there?
Well, I don't know about about any panic buying. I do know that the shelves went empty, but I was sitting at home during that time
Okay.
because I didn't need anything. I waited for all of that stuff to kind of like pass, and then I started going out and filling in whatever gaps there were in my preps. It wasn't. I want to say that I don't think there were a lot of business closures here,
Very
like
good.
there may have been in other states. I do know that a lot of restaurants closed their indoor dining, but you were still able to order food and pick it up at the door and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really happy to say that we didn't lose very many restaurants and businesses permanently. Some of them shut down for a little bit, but they're back up. And it's something that I was telling my wife during the beginning of this, or halfway through it. I said, you know what? I think that Fairbanks, Alaska is going to fare pretty well as far as the businesses that are open or that were open before, this health crisis started,
Right.
staying open after the dust settles. And so far, thank goodness, I think we're doing really good as far as the economy here goes. And as far as any restrictions, like you have to wear, a face cover. No, none of that. The only places where you're really made to wear a face cover is well, I don't consider that you're being made, because if a private business, that someone owns, that's a private person, if they say, hey, I want you to wear a face covering to come in my business, you don't have to patronage their business. If you don't like it, you can just go somewhere else.
Right.
So you're not really being made to go, to wear a face covering there. Some businesses decided to go the route where, yeah, you have to wear a face covering. Some decided to no. For example, in my post office here, our local post office, you don't have to wear a face covering. If you want to go in there, you can if you want to, but you don't have to.
Very nice one.
So there were no crazy, protests or anything like that here. I think I live in a great place. I really do. I think I love where I live, and I love the people that are here amongst our city and amongst the population that I live with. So.
Wow. Well, I mean, listen, not lucky you, but good for you, because over here we're dodging bullets and protesters.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. That's good, man. Sorry, reading some of these comments. So listen, gotta ask you. You didn't lose a lot of businesses there, which is great, because here in New York, with the second shutdown, which is going by zip codes, if you will, a lot of those businesses that are shutting down, they are never going to open again. Right? They're done. There were a few restaurants. I won't say a lot, but there were a few restaurants that closed down from the first shutdown. So they just couldn't deal with it, and they had to close. With that being said, you guys lucked out. This second shutdown that's going to happen and is happening is going to crush the economy here in New York City. So that's pretty.
That's the plan. That's the plan, Angryprepper. I mean, we're all adults. We can all see what's going on. Admit it. Some of us don't want to admit it because we want to stay in a state of what is called normalcy bias. But the plan is, and the plan has been all along, if you read The Creature from Jekyll Island, you'll understand that the Federal Reserve System was made in order so that it can fail, so that we can end up with a two-tier system. We're going to end up with the haves and the have-nots. And you're seeing it happen right in front of your eyes. Who are the people that are being decimated? Small businesses, the middle class. Those are the people that are being decimated. Why are you able to keep a Walmart open, but the mom and pop bodega in the corner has to close? Why? Because the mom and pop bodega or small business, they're the middle class. The Walmarts are not. They're the upper tier of the class system.
Jeez.
So, eventually the middle class will be eroded to a point that there's just going to be two classes. There's going to be the ones on top. There's going to be the ones in the bottom. And, I always like to say this, once I say that, there's a class in the top and a class in the bottom, right? What's in the middle? What's in the middle then?
The middle class. Nothing?
Oh, the middle is going to be full of the police state, that's going to try to impose the will of the ones on the top
Right.
onto the ones on the bottom. And I mean, you can see it happening. What's that? You can see all the evictions going on, all the foreclosures going on. People can't pay their rents. This is all the middle class that's being obliterated. And who's in the middle? Making sure that those people that are being evicted get kicked out. You know, the security force. You know, the security state.
Right.
And that's, I mean, it may sound somewhat conspiratorial. I think it is, because we're watching it happen in front of our eyes.
Right. No.
We're watching it happen. Every time that the Federal Reserve chairman or the president or a senator, every time they say stimulus or QE, quantitative easing, or printing money, anytime they say that, you have to replace those words with stealing your money. Whenever they say QE, quantitative easing, they're saying that they're going to steal your money, your wealth. Whenever they say stimulus, even if you get your little $1,200 check, they're saying that they're going to steal your wealth. All right? Because that's exactly what they're doing. You know, they're giving these large corporations their $25, $50 billion bailouts, and you get $1,200. What's that going to do for you? Nothing. And what that does for the corporations is it gives them a sense of being able to do whatever they want, because they know that they will be bailed out. They can do anything they want with immunity, because they know that we, the citizens, will bail them out with our labor and with the loss of our purchasing power. That's how we bail these people out. So it's happening right in front of us. You know, you can call it whatever you want, but it's happening right now, right in front of us. And one day we will find ourselves, you know, in a country that is, you know, for the wealthy and provided for by the poor. Unfortunately, that's what I see happening unless we change things that are happening now. That's what I see happening to this country. So it's too bad. It really is.
So then, what would you think would need to be done to change that? If we are, I mean, listen, not that if we're headed in that direction, we are headed in that direction. The thing is, it's happening so slow. It's like I tell people, I said before, the frog in the pot theory, right? So the frog in the pot is the event is happening so slow, you're getting used to it until it's too late, right? The frog is in a, let's say room temperature water hanging out, right? And you turn the stove on and he'll boil to death because he's getting used to his surrounding. As if you put that same frog, or before you kill him, you put the same frog, you drop him in a boiling hot water, he jumps right out, right? And so, real quick, Lewis and Tony, thank you for the donation. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks. What would you think would need to be done to change that, or to divert it?
Well, I mean, I'm not a professionally trained economist or anything like that.
Okay.
It's one of my hobbies. I love reading and learning about the economy of nations and the world and things like that. But first and foremost, this is not something that we can just turn a switch. It took generations for us to end up where we are now.
Right.
And I feel that it will take at least one or more generations for us to go back to a place where we are free. Freedom is the best medicine. Freedom is the best thing for prosperity. When we as a people are free, when our money is not being stolen from us, we will thrive. Right? We will thrive. Think about it this way too. Back in World War II was paid on the go, meaning that there wasn't a lot of money borrowed to go to war in World War II. You know, in World War II, they were always having bond drives where they were selling bonds to the American citizens.
Right.
And that's how they paid for the war. It came out of their pockets. And they also increased taxes a whole bunch. So we were paying for World War II as we went. Right? Why is that? Because during that time, there were restrictions on the government and the Federal Reserve, which did not allow them to print money out of thin air. We had a gold-backed currency back then, which said that if you have 1 ounce of gold, you can only print 20.67 cents, $20.67 of fiat, right? Back then we were in a gold-backed, so that restricted the government as to how much money it could print. It could only print as much as it had gold to back it up. Now we don't have that.
No.
Now when we go to war, we mortgage our children's lives so that we can go to war by printing trillions of dollars, going to war, shooting off a Tomahawk missile, which cost about $1 million each, and our kids will end up paying for those Tomahawk missiles and for all of that money that they borrowed to go to war for the next several generations, and then some, because they've created a system where debt cannot be paid back. I was talking to someone yesterday telling them that we live in what is called a debt-based monetary system.
Okay.
And that in debt-based monetary system, you cannot stop creating debt, which means printing dollars. Right? Every time that a new dollar is printed, that is debt that's being created. The second that debt is not being created in this system, we will crash. Our system will crash, and there will be a worldwide depression like no one's ever seen. So it starts with good money. Money, when people think about it, money is one of the foundations. I mean, morals is, of course. I know some people will say, well, morals is the foundation of a nation. But money is also the foundation of a nation. If you have good money, you have a good foundation. If you have bad money, you have a sloppy foundation, and that building won't last very long on that foundation. That's why in the history of money, there has not been one fiat currency in the history of mankind that has never gone to zero. And why in the world would the dollar be any different? I'll go ahead and take off where we let off. I was going to say, in order for our system to change, we either have to be educated willingly,
right,
meaning willingly learn, the trials of history and learn from history and learn what we need to do, or we're going to end up learning in the school of hard knocks, and that's going to be when the system finally crashes. Because, in nature, anything that can be manipulated will only be manipulated until it can no longer be manipulated.
Okay.
And that's how it works, and that's how it will always work. You cannot change nature no matter what.
So then what is your, Share, thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. So then what is your thoughts on cryptocurrency, digital currency?
Well, man, that's a good question. I have some cryptos. I have some cryptos because I believe in being diversified.
Okay.
There's a lot of good and maybe some bads with cryptos. The garden variety things that people use that don't like cryptos are, what if we have an EMP? What if the grid goes down?
Right.
Right? Well, my argument to that is, if we have an EMP or the grid goes down, gold and silver and cryptos, that's going to be the last of your worry. You're going to be hoping that you stocked up on water, on food, on fuel, on having a home that you can keep warm. That'll be the least of your worry is cryptos or gold and silver if we have a grid down situation where we had a CME or an EMP or something like that.
Right.
It'll be all about survival right there. I think that cryptos will be very important maybe in the next generation. They're going to keep working on it.
Okay.
Right now, cryptos, in my opinion, remember when the fax machine first came out? That you had to dial in,
Yes.
you had to actually dial it, and you heard that staticky noise like cooking. It's almost like the internet when you were dialing up in the internet and you heard the little, the static and stuff. Right now, I believe that cryptos are in that phase, like when the internet first started and it was dial up. But I believe that in the decades and maybe generation to come, cryptos will be where the internet is now. It'll be like the Internet of Things. And I think that the world will be working with cryptos. The question is it going to be an independent crypto, or is it going to be a crypto that is centralized and controlled by one entity, by one government? There's nothing wrong with cryptos as long as it's independent and you can trade it freely with whoever you want. Once a government, like for example, over in China, they're pretty much all crypto over there. They're pretty much all digital as far as money goes.
No kidding.
In China.
I didn't know that.
Well, that's what they have in China. In China, they have a social credit score.
Yes, I heard about that.
So if you're in China, Angryprepper, and you ate that extra hamburger that you really wanted, and they tracked it with your wallet that you used to buy it, and they're like, man, Angryprepper should have only had one hamburger. Let me go ahead and fine him for that, for having a second hamburger. And if they don't like you enough because you're politically engaged in the wrong side or the wrong political party, how easy is it to shut off your wallet? Right. That's why for cryptocurrencies to work, I believe, for cryptocurrencies to work, they have to be decentralized. They cannot be controlled by any entity. It has to be open sourced, and it has to be run by the people, not by any one person that can turn off your account or turn on your account at will. But I think that cryptos are here to stay. I honestly do. I think cryptos are here to stay. I'm not an active trader. I don't know all the crypto lingo. But a few years back, before the big crash that they had back in 2017, I think it was, years before that, I decided to buy a few coins. And I did a little bit of trading, and I did pretty good. Right. I just took everything that I had at one point. I put it all in a hardware wallet. I kept my 24-word seed. I have it in a couple different places. And one day, if I ever want to get into it because it did good, great, I have it. It's just a way of diversifying for me. That's all it is. But I believe in also having, precious metals. I believe in having things that add value to your life instead of taking away value from your life. So, I believe in all sorts of forms of wealth preservation. I think that the best form of wealth preservation is to have a loaded pantry. I honestly do.
Right. I agree with that. I'm not a big fan of cryptocurrency. I'm just not a fan because I dabbled in it a couple of years ago, and when I started to understand what cryptocurrency was, I was like, this shit is money. Sorry, that's pulled out of thin air. So they just, this guy went online and put a bunch of codes together and called it money or digital money, and I'm like, that doesn't sit well with me. So that's why I left it alone. Like after the market tanked, if you will, for cryptocurrency, I was done with it. I'm like, I get it. There is an allure with it. I can't deny that. But like you said, the amount of control that's going to start coming down the pipe with cryptocurrency, people are not going to like. And and that's why I'm a big fan of no way.
I was gonna say, I know this is not a cryptocurrency show, so I'm not going to try to get deep into it or stuff like that. But it takes more work to create a Bitcoin than it does to create $1. Right? $1, the difference between creating $1 and $1 trillion is what is it? 12 zeros. Okay. That's it. It's 12 keystrokes. The Federal Reserve tomorrow can create $1 trillion by punching in a 1 followed by however many zeros. That's it. Right. When you're creating a cryptocurrency, I'm not talking about creating a token, which are side coins of cryptocurrency, but like Bitcoin, Litecoin, I think even Digibyte. When you're creating those, they have to undergo a process which is called being mined by a computer. Right. What that computer is doing really is a very powerful computer that's using a lot of energy to figure out a mathematical problem. And once it has a solution, then they are awarded a new Bitcoin or Litecoin or whatever that was created out of that algorithm. And it is assigned to only one coin. For that one coin that was created, it's assigned, I forgot the name of it, but it's assigned like a number to that one coin. You cannot reproduce that one coin again. You cannot reproduce it. It's what's called a deflationary currency, whereas the dollar is an inflationary currency. But like I said, this is not a crypto show. I'm not trying to promote it, but my idea with cryptos is I like to be diversified, have a little bit of everything, and but my main source of wealth preservation, I would say, is precious metals, because there's only so many preps that you can prep in a house. So what do you do? What do you do with your excess wealth once you've got all the preps that you need? Where are you going to store them? You have to find somewhere to put your excess wealth. And I decided to put my excess wealth in precious metals, because I don't have a Walmart size warehouse in my backyard to continue stocking up with.
Well, yeah, listen, I wish I just had an extra closet or two to put more preps, but such is life, right? Listen,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what is your biggest fear in regards to prepping?
Oh goodness, that's a good question. My biggest fear, man, I guess my biggest fear, really, if I had to say something, thinking out of it, like in, out of the in a spot, would say that I would have to use my self defense measures to take someone's life.
Okay,
I would rather never have to do that, but I would do it if I had to protect my family without hesitation. But I would rather never have to do that.
that's actually good. Not a good answer. That's an interesting answer because a lot of people don't bring that point up. A lot of people think that killing somebody, killing someone is like a necessity, and though it can be a necessity, at times
Yeah,
it's not an easy action, and a lot of people,
no,
Americans specifically, we watch too many movies, and we sit there and
yeah,
we think that killing somebody is it's going to come easy, and it's not.
no.
So that was a good answer. So Alan, I mean Old Mutt, sorry, thank you for the donation, man. I appreciate it. Um, so obviously, I have to ask you this question since you live in a rural area: do you hunt and fish? Do you hunt and fish?
I've been so there's a little bit of a backstory to that. So before I retired from the army, I told my wife, I said, I don't ever want to have a mortgage. So we bought a piece of land, we built our own house out of pocket.
Okay.
So ever since I retired till actually this last summer, it was nothing but work on the house, work on the house, work on the house. So I haven't really had very many opportunities to take advantage of going hunting and all that stuff. I
Okay.
have gone what's called dip netting, which is fishing with a net. You take a big old net and you put it in the water and you get salmon. I
Okay.
have done that. It was a lot of fun, a lot of work, but it was very rewarding. But I do plan on taking advantage of my extra time now to start doing all of those things that I've been wanting to do. Uh, you know, I've been very lucky, and thankfully, our house is like 95% done.
Okay.
There's only small things that I have to do. So now is when I'm going to start. After the snow breaks this coming year, is when I'm going to start working on my homestead. Start working on a garden. Going out there and doing a little bit of hunting and fishing and stuff like that. I'm
Oh,
not really a big hunter by nature, but it's something that I need to do a few times. That way, if I have to do it in the future, I can know what I'm doing. So I rather buy my meat than to kill it, but I need to learn how to kill it and process it and put it on the table should I ever have to do it. You know?
I tell you, it's the I discovered. I was telling I guess Happy Prepper yesterday that I don't enjoy hunting, but it's a necessity. Like
Yeah,
I guess the killing of the animal is what I don't like, but I know and I understand that it has to be done.
yeah,
Don't get me wrong. I'm not like those people alone. I'm not going to cry about it and have a funeral procession over it. But nonetheless, I'm not a big fan. Like if I have to go out and get something to eat, guess what we're going to do? We're going to hunt. But I'm not going to. I mean, listen, unless it's a massive deer, like 20 points or whatever it is, like the biggest it can be, and then maybe just maybe. But if I'm just killing, dispatching deers, I'm doing it to eat. I'm not doing it for game, and I'm not doing it for accolades and pats on the back. So that was always my issue with hunting. So nonetheless, next month, right? We're in October, right? Next month, um, I'll be heading out with a couple of guys to learn from them on how to hunt.
good,
So
great. That's good.
so let's see. At what point? I mean, listen. If this is a hard question, I think this is a hard question for you, considering where you are. I don't think you. I don't think this question is going to be easy to answer. But at what point would you bug out during a grid down scenario?
So yeah, that is a good question. I was anticipating you asking that when you said at one point because I've seen plenty of the interviews that you've done already.
Okay.
So this is the deal with where I live. When we chose this piece of property, I didn't just see it and say, okay, we're getting it. No. First thing I did was I scouted out the neighborhood. Not really a neighborhood, but there are other families that live around here.
Okay.
I came over here. I looked at the property. I liked it. I went to some of the people's houses that are around here. I talked to them for a few minutes. I got a feel of how they were, and after checking around and knocking on a few doors, people around here are awesome, great people. One of the things that I like is that they're very not only resilient, but they are prepared. They are reliant on themselves. They're not looking for someone else to do something for them. They're relying on themselves. So for the majority, the people that live in this area where I live, I can trust that they're not going to come and burn down my house for a loaf of bread, because they already have loaves of bread put away, right? And I'm pretty assured that we can all work together. If something ever happened where we had to, join in together as a community to defend this place, I'm pretty well assured that we would be able to do that. So that's number one. As far as me ever having to bug out, is pretty unlikely. And I'll give you the second reason why. So the city of Fairbanks has about 39,000 people, which is really not that bad, for a city of for a city, 39,000 people.
Wow.
I forgot the number, but I think it's like one person for every. In the city of Fairbanks, I think it's like one person for every 4 acres or something like that. The population density.
Really?
It's like one person per 4 acres or something like that. But I'm talking about the whole city. Not just the city center, but
right.
like the whole city. One person for every 4 acres or something like that, which is really good. So I asked myself when I was looking at this property, if something bad were to happen, if the SHTF were to happen, who is going to come to where I live? Well, I live far away enough from the city that they would not want to come to where I live, because I live north of the city. And where I live, north of where I live, there is nothing. There is absolutely no. There's no supermarkets. There's one tiny gas station north of where I live, and then after that, there is absolutely nothing. So if something were to happen, where would they want to go? Would they want to go to where they know that there's nothing, or would they want to go to where they know that there's something? So south of Fairbanks, there's a city south of Fairbanks that's called North Pole. So what I think would happen is that if there is an SHTF, the people of Fairbanks, the 39,000 people of Fairbanks, are not going to be headed north to nothing. They're going to be headed south to where there is something. So I don't think I would have to worry about a horde coming my way. In addition to that, we live about 3 or 4 turns off of a major highway. So for someone to get here, they have to know where here is. If they're traveling south there's a really small town north of us. So if they were traveling south, they would travel the highway because it's the easiest route. So in order for somebody to get where I am, they have to know where I am. The likelihood of somebody coming up here from, Fairbanks during an SHTF situation is very, very unlikely. However, if I had to bug out, I can. It would probably take me a day or so. So I would have to know in advance, hey, you need to bug out in a day.
Okay.
I have a trailer that I can load up probably a year's worth of food in, and all the necessities that we need in order to, get by for however long we need it to. Hopefully not too long. But that is an option. I'm looking into getting some land north of where I live now. In Alaska, if your land doesn't fall within a borough, for example, the borough that we live in is called the North Star Borough. And if you purchase land outside of North Star Borough, which is about 50 miles north of here, there's no property tax. So I'm looking at maybe getting a little piece of land up there where I can actually bug out to if I have to, and maybe have some systems in place there where if we had to bug out, it would be a little bit more friendly for us to live there for a given number of days or weeks or months. Wow. But I see it very unlikely that I would have to bug out of here. But you never know. You really never know. So I can't say that it would never happen.
Well, like I said, I sort of knew, that would be the answer considering where you live, where, you don't live here in New York City, right? And you don't live in an apartment building where you have to rely on the responsibility of other people uh, to not burn down your home, right? So obviously, if there's a
Right.
fire below me, or hell, even above me, if it gets bad above me, I pay the price as well, right? Because
Yep.
if you have a fire, let's say below me, and the fire moves up the walls, um, firemen have to come into this apartment, break the walls open, and possibly fight the fire from this level. If it's above me and there's a ton of fire in what's something called a cockloft, all of that water that they use comes down here. So regardless, I pay the price, or you
Right.
pay the price when you live in an apartment building, which is why I want to get out of an apartment building. So, Chris, Nate,
Yeah.
and Kevin, thank you for the donation. I appreciate it, guys. We appreciate the donation. Thank you. All right, so you know this question. This is the moral question. I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I want other people to hear it. So, if you came upon an obvious prepper stash during a grid down scenario, and for whatever reason you're bugging out and you happen to see this, do you take it? Do you leave it?
Yeah. There's obviously different answers to that one question.
Yeah.
So, if it was a life and death matter, if it was a matter of life and death, I would want to use some of that so that I can continue to live and my family can continue to live. However, the first thing I'm going to find out is the owner of this property, is that person here, and or is that person alive? See, if I go, I've heard you mention the movie The Road several times in your videos.
Yes.
Okay, and there's the part where Viggo Mortensen and his son, where they find that little cache, right, or cache
Right.
that's full of food. However, inside the house, the occupants had already expired.
Right.
They're dead. There's absolutely no problem. I think that they should have eaten every single thing that they could have and taken everything they could have with them. There's nobody there to use the preps they put away.
Right.
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 So if the owners of that property have expired, I have no problem whatsoever using some. I wouldn't take it all if I didn't need it all because I'm just getting from point A to point B.
Right.
I would probably leave there. However, I would probably make myself a little map of where it is, just in case in the future we did have to come back and for food or stuff like that. So, like I said, I would make sure that the owners of that property were not there. That they were dead. No problem, free game. If they were still alive, I would ask. I would say, listen, can I barter something with you? Can I give you a knife? Of course, there's the right way of doing that and the wrong way. You have to have your very good sniper son off in a bush somewhere, looking out for you while you ask the question on the porch or something,
Right.
if they're still alive, right? So yeah, you have to take security you have to take security into concern when you're doing this. But if they were alive, I would ask, and I would try to barter with them. And if it was a life and death situation, I probably wouldn't wait to ask, even if they were alive. I would just grab a darn granola bar and eat the darn thing, And because what are you gonna do? You can decide to die, but I don't think that we were put on this earth to die. To just give up, right?
Not at all.
And you just have to. I guess you have to look at the situation. If you have children, it's going to add another factor into that answer. If I have children and my children are starving and I come across a cache, yes, I'm going to go ahead and grab some of that. I'm going to make sure that my child lives and that I live to be able to take care of that child. And if the people are still alive, I'm going to leave most of it and I'm going to continue on. And even if I did it in a stealthful manner, I would leave something behind. I would leave a couple of, pre-1965 quarters,
Okay.
or a knife or a chapstick or something like that. It's just a way to be able to, to keep humanity intact, I guess you could say.
Right.
Because leaving something behind instead of just taking it and taking as much as you can is just keeping your humanity, still being human instead of turning into an animal and just ravaging anything you see. So I mean, I don't know if that was a great answer, but we all have to be honest with ourselves.
Right.
We have to. I could sit here and say, no, no way, Angryprepper. There's no way that I would ever take anything. No, yes, I would. If my child was starving and I was starving and we were gonna die, I will take some because I want to live. I want my child to live. However, I would try to be a human about it. I would try to barter. I would try to leave something behind that's of value to the person who this stuff belongs to.
Right.
Because life and death, unless someone has stared death in the eyes, they, you don't know really what it's like. When you're on the verge of dying. I can say that I think that for the most part, your average person does not want to die, no matter how tough they look or seem or anything like that. They don't want to die.
It's funny you say that because when being in the line of work I'm in, when you've seen, gangbangers or gang members shot and you see that look in their face, you're like, man, just a half hour ago, you were talking this game like you were, you were invincible. Yeah. Now you got this look in your eye like it's not scared, it's pure fear. So it's always interesting to see that when people talk about that, I'll take that, I'll die. And in the moment that it hits them, you're like, dude, I guess, it's just interesting how people who talk a lot of crap about dying do not know what that entails.
Most, I would say that if you're in a good place in your life and you're comfortable with the person that you are and the life that you've lived, I would say that I'm not afraid to die, but I don't want to die. I feel that there's more here for me to do. But if the good Lord came down today and grabbed me and took me, I could tell myself right now, listen, I did the best. I think that my family will be okay. And I did my best. So I'm not afraid to die, but I don't want to die. So if a situation ever presented itself where I could live by taking something that belongs to someone else, although not hurting anyone, and maybe trading with them or bartering with them, yes, I would definitely do it because I don't want to die. No, that's just a plain fact. I don't want to die. It doesn't mean I'm not afraid of dying. I mean that I'm afraid of dying. I just don't want to die. And I think most people are in that same place. Most people that are really afraid of dying, I think that they're just afraid that they did not lead the life that they really wanted to lead or were intended to lead.
Right.
It's we're getting pretty deep in here, Angryprepper.
Yeah, I know. We're but listen, it's okay. Greg, thank you for the donation, man. I appreciate it. It's good because this is not. As I do these interviews, I like to grow from the questions. Instead of keeping them basic, this has not been a basic interview because you've dived into a lot of things that, and you've dived into things I wouldn't have thought about, and then that just gave me more questions to think about, which is working well for you, which is actually working good. And yeah, people keep, saying I look tired. If you haven't heard, I was doing an all-nighter. And as I'm thinking about it right now, the radio interview was pretty cool. But, God, I wouldn't do that again, man. And if I did, I'd shoot up on, like, Pepsi or something. Yeah, it was a long night. And then I had to get up early, so that really didn't fare well. So we're sort of wrapping it up, but because you mentioned it earlier, I have to ask this question: what mistakes have you made, and how did you learn from them?
Oh, what mistakes, man! I'll tell you what, I've made a lot of mistakes, but a lot of real simple, minute mistakes. I don't think I've made huge mistakes. If I had to say one mistake that I made was that I didn't start prepping earlier.
Okay.
But
that's fair enough.
Because when I look back 12 years or so, I look at myself and I'm like, my goodness, I was so asleep and so normalized to the world as it was.
Okay.
I look back and I'm like, man, had I only woken up a little earlier, things would have been so much different than they are now. Not that I'm not grateful for what I have now, but things would have been moved along so much more than what they are now. And people tend to want to wait for crises before they take action. And should I have taken action and started preparing long before, then I would have been way ahead now. And one good example that I like to bring up whenever I talk about that is that before I started prepping, the things that I spent my wealth on did not add value to my life.
Okay.
I bought a brand new car every other year, throwing money away. I bought G.I. Joes. I was a big G.I. Joe guy, all right?
Okay.
All right, I had a whole bunch of G.I. Joes, and now I look back and I'm like, my goodness, I could have bought an ounce of silver for each one of those G.I. Joes that I bought 15 years ago. Imagine how much, So, yeah, so before I started prepping, most of my wealth went to things that did not add value to my life. Whereas now, after I started prepping, I look around my house, and a thought experiment that I like to tell people that they should do at home is look around your house and imagine that the lights go out today and they never coming back on. What in your house adds value to your life if the lights are never coming back on? Does that big screen TV add value to your life now? No. Does that refrigerator add value to your life? Maybe you can turn it into a smoker or something like that for fish, but pretty much no. Does the preps that you have in your crawl space add value to your life? Yep. Man, it adds a lot of value to your life, does it?
Yep.
Does the self-defense, sidearm that you have, or the shotgun that you have, does that add value to your life? Absolutely it does. So I like to say that one of the big mistakes, I guess, that I made in my life is that a lot of the wealth that I've earned in my life, I used on things that did not add value to my life, instead that took value away from my life. So I think that's the best answer I can give you on that one. I mean, I can tell you that I made a mistake of putting away a pancake mix in a Mylar bag, and it puffed up the Mylar bag because it had leavening in it.
Oh.
I did I could tell you that that's a mistake, but I think that for someone to get something out of my answer, I think that if they look at themselves and they ask themselves, what are you doing to add value to your life? What have you done today? What productive thing have you done today to add some value to your life? And if you ask yourself that every day, then maybe you'll take a little more action where you do start doing things that will be productive for your life and help you add value instead of take away value. So
that's actually a good answer. Brenda, thank you for the donation. It's funny. So I have a knack for buying things that are going to add value and buying things that don't. Just because I'm a tech guy, right? So like if it's new, I gotta have it kind of deal. Cat's Meow, thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. So I've sort of mastered it, though. The apartment gets a lot cluttered now, so I gotta cut back on it because
there you go.
Right. She gets
well, Angryprepper. I tell people that, listen, man, we have to live, but we're not living to prep. We're prepping to live.
Right.
All right. So we have to live. So there's absolutely nothing wrong. My old boss bought an $80,000 truck, right? Okay. And I said, there's no way I would ever do that. I won't. I would never do that. I just purchased a 10-year-old truck not too long ago, but it's a 10-year-old truck. But to me, it's a great truck. But I was talking to him. He makes $130,000 a year. He's also retired from the military, so he's got a retirement check coming from the military. And I said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I said, because we have to live. We have to enjoy those little things in life. Yes. Because then why are we living? If you don't enjoy your life and you don't enjoy the little things in life, then why are we living? We have to live. So, if somebody, like, for example, I used to like to collect G.I. Joes. Okay. That was one of the little things that I like to do. I went ahead and replaced my attraction to collecting, G.I. Joes and planes and stuff, little planes and stuff like that with prepping, something that I'm more passionate about. But there's nothing wrong in adding some things to your life that don't bring, you know, that aren't, that don't keep their value, that don't really add a lot of value to your life, meaning on a physical basis. But if you like it, if it's something that you enjoy doing and you can afford it and you're not going into debt for it, there's absolutely nothing wrong. Because Angryprepper has to be happy now and then also. You have to do something that makes you happy also. It's not all about business in life. You have to be happy as well. So there's nothing wrong with those things.
So the G.I. Joe collection, were they still boxed or were they open?
They were beautiful. No, they were completely boxed, wrapped, and everything. And don't ask about them. They got flooded out in a basement.
Oh shit! Oh God!
So yeah, they were awesome though. They were. I even had the guy that had the spacesuit on and everything.
Yeah. Oh man,
it was an awesome collection, man. Yeah.
That sucks. Because I was gonna say, if you still have them, that adds value when you sell them. If you sell them. Yeah. But now they're gone.
Yeah, they'd probably be worth a good penny nowadays. Because I bought those 25 years ago. Yeah.
Jesus, man. You know who I still have floating around here somewhere? Remember Refrigerator Perry?
Yeah.
The man in the little G.I. Joe? Yeah, I still have that. That's the only G.I. Joe I have. And he's floating around here somewhere. But and it's not in a box, obviously, because I was playing around with it. But listen, we are at the hour threshold.
All right.
If anybody, well, obviously people are going to have questions. So we will take a couple of questions for those of you that are still on. And by the way, guys, do me a favor. If you haven't already, hit the like button or the thumbs down, whatever makes you happy. Just helps out with the YouTube algorithm if you guys don't mind. So we're going to wait a couple questions for Alaskan Prepper. Where or how did you live while building? Okay, so where did you live while you were building your house now?
Oh, that's a good question. So
that's
remember that I said if you remember back, I said about a year before I retired from the Army,
right?
We decided that we were going to actually retire here, so we bought some land,
right?
And we started building our house. Well, when you're in the military either gives you money to live off base,
right,
or they provide you a house to live on base. So for about a year before I got out of the Army, it was literally, I would get off of work. My son would get off of work too, around the same time as me. We would get off of work. We would come here to the property. We would work until the sun went down. We would go home, and we would do that 7 days a week for almost a year straight.
Wow.
The only days that I had off were days where it was raining so hard that we couldn't work, or during the middle of winter where it was too cold outside to do anything. So we did that for 1 year straight, if not more, just work in this house every single day from the time we got off of work to the sun went down. On the weekends, we'd be here 16 hours a day. And we lived on base. We lived in a house that we had on base while we were doing. So that's how we were able to build our house and, be able to be housed also at the same time.
All right, next question. So listen, guys, don't be mad at me if I miss a couple questions. It is flying by, not fast, but letting him answer, and by the time I get to the next question, it's gone. But someone did ask an interesting one. At least I thought it was interesting. Well, it's interesting for me because I know your answer, but Stephanie's asking, how do you prepare for winter?
We just do what needs to get done.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no, I don't take any notes. We just, the main thing for winter here is to make sure I don't have a wood stove in my house, right? When I built my house, I built it without a wood stove in mind, with the exception of an SHTF. So, for example, let's say that something happens and I know for a fact I will never be able to get a drop of heating fuel again forever. Well, my heating fuel stove that I have, which is my house heater, that would be coming out, and I would be putting a wood stove in there. I have the wood stove, all right? I have it,
okay,
but I don't have it installed it's about a 4-hour, 5-hour process to install a wood stove here, right? So one of the ways you get ready for winter here is make sure that you have enough heating fuel to last you the winter, all right? And that could be in the form of heating fuel, that could be in the form of propane, that could be in the form of wood, all right? So that's one of the things that you do to get ready for winters here. I mean, some of the basic garden variety things that every Alaskan does to get ready for winter is make sure that your car is winterized. It may sound like something basic, but it's very important. You don't want to get stuck, on a highway somewhere during a blizzard and negative 40 degrees and get stuck there and nobody know where you are. So, there's extra precautions that we take. Like in our vehicles, I have a get home bag that has several fire making, materials in it.
Right.
I even have an extra phone in there that's not, it's not activated, but you can still use it to make an emergency phone call instead, in case something happens to your phone, and you just, what, winters here are actually pretty welcoming in a way because you get a break. In the summer here or the non-winter months here, you're always on the go. You're always doing something. You're always working on something in your house. There's never something that you don't have to do during the non-winter months. So when the winter months come, you're like, in a way, you dread it because of the cold and the snow. But in a way, you're like, oh, man, this is cool. Now I get to relax and do some stuff that I want to do, go to the range more, and even go hunting. There's hunting in the winter here as well. So, But yeah, preparing for winter is just doing the basic things that pretty much anyone else does. In my case, maybe, or up here, might be a little more drastic, because we do have a pretty harsh winter up here. But I do know that there are some states in the lower 48 that have a worse winter than we do.
Really?
So, I think, what is it, Montana is one of them, I think. Maybe up in some of those northern states, North Dakota, right. Some of those states up there north, they have really brutal winters where they get negative 50, negative 60 also.
They do get hammered. That is true. You're right. You are right about that. All right. So I heard a couple questions about your military. What was your MOS?
Well, I started my career in the military as what's called a 13 Fox or a Fister, forward observer, the guy that orders the bombs. Right. So I was embedded with an infantry platoon, and my job was to hang out with the platoon commander, which is usually a second or first lieutenant. Right. And if we got into what's called a TIC, a troops in contact, I would take my orders from my commander, and if he wanted me to order some bombs to go wherever he wanted them to go, it was my job to come up with the correct solution, grid, right, to send up the line so that they can start shooting the bombs. And it was my job to also guide them to where they were supposed to go. So, I was certified to order fire from howitzers, from mortars, from fixed-wing aircrafts, and from rotary-wing aircrafts. Wow. Fisters can also order fire from naval ships, but I wasn't certified to do that. Plus, we were too far in country to be getting any fire from naval ships.
All right.
Oh, and I ended my career as a finance guy. So I ended my Army career as a finance guy. I had a very eventful deployment to Afghanistan,
right?
Where I needed to switch from what's called a hard MOS, combat MOS, to a soft MOS. Gotcha. Meaning switching from being a badass to being a desk jockey.
Yeah. Listen, it happens with the best of us, right? It's funny, not military, obviously, but you do so much during your career. You start looking at the lighter spots. Like, man, what would that be like to not throw on 200, 100 and something pounds worth of gear and run upstairs, and then you start to look at it, and with me, I'm like, no. There's no way I could, I can't sit behind a desk. I can't do any of the light jobs. But it's a nice thought. It's a nice thought to look at it and be like, man, that looks like it's comfortable. But I'd rather run my body till the wheels fall off than sit behind a desk at this point.
It's a hard decision for me to make, but it was either that or maybe end my military career. So I decided to go ahead and just stay on.
So how are you enjoying the retired life?
Hey, man, I'm free. I have to say, man, listen, I get to wake up when I want to wake up. I get to eat lunch when I eat one of my biggest pet peeves about having to be in the workforce, at least with my experience, is lunch is at noon. Lunch is at noon every day. Lunch is at noon.
Right.
Another one is, hey boss, can I take a couple of days off from this day to this day? I don't have to do that now. I can get up when I want to get up. I can do what I want to do when I want to do it. If I want to make 10 YouTube videos that day, I can, just because I want to, but I don't have to make any if I don't want to, so, right now I'm experiencing what I think is the closest thing to freedom that I've ever experienced in my life.
Wow. Okay.
Besides when I was a little kid, because when you're a small child, you're free. When you're a small child, you're free. Your actions don't have very many repercussions. So I would like to say that I'm probably experiencing the most freedom that I've experienced in my life as an adult. So yeah, it's great. I'm loving it.
Nice, man. Very nice. Well, guys, listen. We are almost an hour and a half. We did really good. This was a very good interview. Listen, all the people I've interviewed, I've had a good time with. Nobody has let me down so far. Everybody has done their part in, I guess, holding up their end and keeping the interview interesting. Even with me being tired, you still kept me awake, which is good. So thank you for that. Be ready today. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. Listen, everybody did a good job. Thank you so much. Tony Elbows, I'll get you the name of the song I used for the beginning and the intro and outro. Matter of fact, just email me later, please, at angryprepper@gmail.com. I can steer you in the right direction if they're still selling the song. Guys, for those of you who haven't already, please head over to Alaska Prepper's channel and like and subscribe to his channel. You will not be disappointed, as a lot of us were not disappointed with this interview. So, again, guys, thank you for joining us tonight. Alaska Prepper, thank you for joining us. And my viewers, everyone did an awesome job. Thank you, moderators, for doing an awesome job. One more announcement. So I did sort of get Bear Independent on the hook for an interview next week. So as of right now, the interview with the Bear Independent and I will be October 29th at 9 o'clock. That should be very interesting. And Autumn Backyard Garden, her interview is the 28th of October at 9 o'clock. I also have Pinball Preparedness November 2nd at 9 o'clock. Let's see, there's two more guys. I'm interviewing with Urban Prepper Thursday, I'm not sure what time, on his channel. And then Prepping Outside the Box, I'm interviewing him Friday, November the 6th at 9 o'clock. So for everyone I mentioned, head over there to their channel, guys. Like and subscribe. I know Autumn Backyard Garden, she's a small channel, but she knows her stuff. Head over to her channel as well, and like and subscribe. And Prepping Outside the Box, head over to his channel. He is a Marine. He served his country. So, guys, do right by him. Head over to his channel, like and subscribe. And he's actually a good channel. He knows what he's talking about, too. So, that's very good. I like military guys like Alaska Prepper who know their shit, who know what they're talking about, and do not use their military background as the end-all, be-all. Because they were in the military, you have to listen to me. I like guys that do that because it's real. It's not, listen to me, look at me because I did X, Y, and Z. So, other than that, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us. And, guys, have a good night.
Bye, guys.